Instead, then, let's move onwards to The Matrix Resurrections.
Now, I hope you will excuse the following, as not my best work. It's been a hard week, and I only watched the film about an hour ago. But I have thoughts. Yes, indeed, thoughts. 1999 saw the release of The Matrix. A hugely derivative, but yet hugely influential and hugely enjoyable action movie. Should have left it at that, really. It had some interesting notions of the nature of reality, in particular with its references to Jean Baudrillard's book Simulacra and Simulation, and a bunch of other similar things littered throughout. None of it was more than surface level, however much other people might have pretended otherwise, but that was fine, and it all fitted well into the film's conceit of living in a dream world indistinguishable from reality. Then came the sequels, Reloaded and Revolutions, which I've seen described as going hard into the philosophical stuff. Something that, like the Oracle's prediction for Neo, really baked my noodle, as, while that stuff may be there if you're looking for it, as far as I'm concerned, is mostly completely abandoned for crappy action, ugly effects, and hokey fortune cookie level philosophy like, you do not truly know someone until you fight them. Oh, and they were tremendously boring, which is of course the bigger crime. Now, a mere 18 years later, we have another sequel, bringing down the total percentage of good Matrix films to around 25%. Yay! It actually starts off reasonably promisingly. Keanu Reeves' Neo is not dead. He and Carrie-Anne Moss's Trinity have been brought back to life by the machines for some inadequately explained reason. Something, happier, more productive human battery something. And is living within a new version of the Matrix, working as a video game developer. His therapist, Neil Patrick Harris, is helping him to deal with his anxiety, depression, and his continuing delusions that he's living inside of a computer-generated dream world in the thrall of sentient machines. These delusions the therapist attributes to Neo's, or Thomas's, extremely successful video game trilogy, The Matrix, in which a character called Neo is living within a computer-generated dream world in the thrall of sentient machines. And that idea grabbed me, actually. It fitted the series' main conceit extremely well. It was potentially interesting. It tied back to Simulacra and Simulation and the like. And then the film winked. It winked so hard I winced. And it never stopped winking. Neo's boss wants him to make a sequel to his game. Our beloved parent company, Warner Brothers, has decided that it will make a sequel to the trilogy with or without us, he tells him. Oh, you're going to be like that. No. I love that meta stuff in, for example, Joe Dante's Gremlins 2 The New Batch. It worked in Gremlins 2. In The Matrix Resurrections, I hated it, and it never stops. I might have warmed to that though, if the whole film had been in the same vein, but it's not. It stops for an hour or more to have an incredibly tedious real-world plot where Trinity has to be rescued, with dull characters and pretty mediocre action. There's no spark. There's also Agent Smith, for a reason, who wants a thing. I have no idea what, but you know what? I'm sure it's a jolly important thing, and not a nebulous, poorly explained plot contrivance. Quite certain. Of course, it's not Agent Smith because it's not Hugo Weaving. Weaving's antagonist was so distinctive, so charismatic, so entertaining in The Matrix. Here, what is supposedly a version of the same character is played by someone operating on a sub-Dennis Quaid level of non-charisma. It's rather depressingly bland. That recasting of sorts is something of a theme, actually. Lawrence Fishburne's role is kind of maybe reprised by Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, and he's decent enough, but he's no Fishburne. And his character is written to, seemingly, entirely ridicule the first film in the franchise, which is a weird move. Jada Pinkett Smith isn't recast, but may as well have been, so little resemblance and performance does she have to her character in the first two sequels. And in perhaps the strangest move of all, though potentially a meta one, a song has been effectively recast. A cover version of Rage Against the Machine's Wake Up, which notably ended the first film, is used as the credits begin here. In the way of many covers, and a way I've never ever seen the point of, it is performed in the same style as the original. Only worse. Much, much worse.
Yes.
It is It is probably the worst thing since that criminally bad cover of Smells Like Teen Spirit from Black Widow, which may be the actual worst thing. But, it's not far off of it. On the upside, series newcomer Jessica Hennick is pretty good as the Trinity-like Bugs. That's it. Well, that's a little unfair. Carrie-Anne Moss is actually quite underserved by this film, but she's likeable enough. Keanu Reeves, for the most part, is pretty enjoyable, actually. Found myself feeling quite a lot of sympathy for him in these early scenes when he feels really anguished and not understanding whether what he seems reality or not. But beyond that, no. I mean, The Matrix Resurrections is more entertaining than Revolutions, certainly, and maybe better than Reloaded, though in my recent rewatch I had a higher opinion of that than I did previously. But it's largely dull. The winking at the audience is infuriating. It's too long, of course, and it's massively unnecessary. I don't know why this film exists, and it seems strange to me that you spend most of the film ridiculing audiences and executives and the film itself, but you've made another film anyway. And also it's what that film made your career. Yeah, it's strange. Yeah. Not a good film. I did not enjoy my time with this at all.
Yeah. And I'd like this film a lot more if it was, better. There's the ideas in here I can kind of almost get behind, but what struck me the most is because I also went back and watched all the original films as well, which ate up a lot of my film watching budget this month, and I did arguably get a bit more out of the sequels this time round. Now you can actually watch them back to back into the kind of one film they're always really meant to be, without the whatever it was 6 months gap I think between the cinemas. But what really struck me in the memory of when that first sequel came out, it wasn't just that was coming out. It was a real full court press of everything. The Animatrix stuff was coming out. There was the video games were out there as well. I'm pretty sure there was other things like comic books and novels and that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah.
The idea of it really seemed to be, look at all the stories we can tell in the Matrix. And as soon as you got past them, it's like, turns out there's one story you can tell in the Matrix, and it's the first film.
Yeah, and you really should have left it at that.
Yeah, this kind of tries to reboot it in that kind of way. It tries to bring it back. It tries all the meta stuff. I got more out of that. The first kind of 45 minutes, I guess that might have been. I kind of liked that. It leaned into it too hard. Mm-hmm. There were points that really kind of had me grinding my teeth in frustration with it, mixed with a lot of actually good stuff. I agree that Keanu Reeves is actually great in this film. Certainly all that early stuff, and continues most of the way through it. It's a good performance. It's a solid performance in a kind of that kind of weird Matrix situation that would work. Neil Patrick Harris is a good foil for him as well. So that kind of stuff worked, and I really would have rather you stayed in that for a lot longer. Because as soon as you get into the quote-unquote real world, the interest levels fall dramatically. The new stuff is, yes, some of the new characters, the actors are fine, the characters, they're okay, but a lot of the effects work is it's okay, but it's not great. The action sequences are actually bad. They were always going to have a bit of a rod for their own back, because, I mean, like, cultured people like you and I, when we watch The Matrix, go, okay, right, so they've just taken Hong Kong action stuff and put the kind of Hollywood filter on it. And that's cool, but it was so influential in it. Like, now every action film looks like it's very heavily influenced by The Matrix. So, returning to it, what you've kind of got is action scenes that have just kind of been surpassed by everything, because that kind of action sequence has been done better in 3 John Wick films. Yeah. With the same characters, you know what I mean? So it felt kind of lackluster. The new Agent Smith, they just shouldn't have bothered with, because he's a complete non-entity, and you can't do that role without Hugo Weaving, because Hugo Weaving's so good in it. Yeah, there's just a whole bunch of stuff that just... I can kind of see where the ideas were, but the execution just doesn't really add up at all. It goes on too long. You could cut out. I think if you try to compress the kind of last hour and a half by about, I don't know, 40 minutes or something, this would probably make it into being quite a good film, but it got kind of tedious towards the end, and I was losing interest by the second. I don't think it's awful. I wouldn't even tell you the sequels are awful, having gone back and rewatched them. They're just in such a different league from the the first film that it's very hard to recommend them or see them as anything other than a disappointment. I wouldn't steer people away from this film if you're interested in it, but it's hard to recommend it. It just doesn't do what it's trying to do well enough to really recommend it.
Yeah, it's you get another film which is massively suffering from the runtime inflation. I'm not going to stop talking about it anytime soon, I think, because it's not stopping, and I just don't understand it. So everything just needs to be tightened up. And you could cut out of this film pretty much anything that happens with Jada Pinkett Smith and that whole new human settlement thing.
Yeah.
Because it adds nothing to the plot. It just seems to stall the plot for no reason.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly tedious and it's like pointless. So, yeah. And that takes up a fair chunk of the running time.
Mm.
Yeah, and I don't know, it's weird. I went back myself. I didn't watch The Matrix because I don't need to. It's a film I know off by heart. I watched it so much when it came out in DVD. It's the first DVD I bought, I think.
Yeah, it's the one you would buy to test your DVD player, wasn't it?
Yeah. And I watched that a lot. I don't think I'd seen, despite having, I think bought those 3 times since, because, I'm an idiot who should be allowed money. Bought them 3 times since they came out. I hadn't seen them since I saw them in the cinema.
Mm-hmm. Same, yeah.
Watching Reloaded, again, as I recall, the prevailing wisdom at the time was that Reloaded was bad, Revolutions was better. It's how I remembered them being. On a rewatch, it's like, Reloaded's actually the more interesting film, and Revolutions is appalling, and also I didn't remember a single damn thing about it. It's so tedious. The special effects are not particularly impressive in this film. The special effects in The Matrix Reloaded are appalling. They're so poor.
I need to give them a bit of leeway, given the age of the film. They were really pushing the boundaries of what could be done with like that amount of digital actors and action sequences and all that kind of stuff. Yes, they pushed it too far. It wasn't ready. I don't remember at the time thinking that it was awful. But yes, things like the Burly Man fight, what are they calling it? The big multiple Hugo Weavings, and I was like, that doesn't look quite right. I'll let it go because it's interesting to see. But yeah, needed a few more years to really get that thing sorted out. Yeah,
I was referring to that as a playground fight with the Burly Man soundtrack. Now you say I'd forgotten that name. But yeah, so I don't remember how that was there. I just remember at the time that was like the big deal. And going back,
it's not aged well. Yeah.
Oh God, the digital doubles look as bad as the ones from Blade 2. But yeah, watching that again, it's like, it looks terrible. The digital doubles are awful. All of the people that are meant to be Hugo Weaving are quite clearly not Hugo Weaving. They're all extras. Yes. They don't look even a tiny bit like him.
Yes.
And then it goes on forever, and it looks ugly, and yeah, it's boring. It doesn't seem to actually add anything to the film at all. The story in the second 2 is pretty bad. Although, actually, on rewatching it, I was making audible involuntary comments about it. Like when you see how terrible the blue or the green screening is on top of the truck with Lawrence Fishburne. And I was like, oh no. Like kind of really aware that I was speaking. I was like, oh God, that's so bad. But there's some more interesting ideas in there, and then I don't know.
What I didn't mean to say about this film is I don't know why they felt the need to do the Merovingian so dirty, but seeing him show back up in Resurrections was just a real low point. It's like, that's awful, and your character saying awful things that makes me feel like I'm silly for watching this film. Just go away.
Yeah, I didn't particularly care for the Merovingian at all. In my head, because it had been so long since I'd seen it, I'd kind of recast him in my head as Vincent Cassel.
Yeah, I could see where
But
you're
that'd
getting
be
that from.
good because he's great. That guy, Lambert Wilson, is terrible. Especially in the Matrix Resurrections. Yeah, can barely understand the word he's saying. And the words I can understand is I'm talking about people with modern mobile phones going beepity boop boop, getting breaking the fourth wall there, and then talking about how he wants a sequel and a spin-off.
Yeah.
Like, God, no.
It's teeth grindingly annoying, really was.
Yeah. And then what was very much got away from the more modern films. I'm going to critique these older ones now. But what I was struck by in Matrix Revolutions, apart from just being incredibly dull, and also Neo defeated Agent Smith at the end because of the actual mechanism for that. Not well explained.
Yeah, I don't mind that so much because anytime they've even hinted at explaining a mechanism inside anything to do with the Matrix, is like, nah, doesn't work.
Yeah.
It's like, nope, thermodynamics does not allow the system to exist. So I don't care that much about it to nitpick it on that level. It's not really science fiction in the hard science kind of way, you know.
No, but he seemed like paying lip service to it, just like, well, he touched him, now he's... Anyway, no. And the problem with those two sequels is that Hugo Weaving, whose character, if you remember, died at the end of The Matrix. It should have stuck with one film, worked really well as one film. He was so iconic. It's such a fun performance.
It's the smell.
Yeah. So, like, I think they thought, oh, that's a good character, it's a good performance, it's really popular. Let's double down on that. You know what? Let's quadruple down on that. It's like,
Yeah.
And then they kept the same character for this one. It's but missed the main point, which was the performance.
Yeah.
Because like one thing that kind of frustrated me in particular with Matrix Revolution, is that they kind of made Neo an idiot. It's not suggesting that he's like a genius or anything, but he's an idiot because the guy who's playing the character Bane in that, who's infected by Agent Smith, is actually great because he understood the whole point of that character and the way he spoke and everything. So they have Neo be a complete idiot that this guy's talking to him in the very, very distinctive voice patterns of Agent Smith and saying things only Agent Smith would know and addressing him in a way only Agent Smith would know. And Neo's just like completely oblivious. At least have the characters like, okay, I don't understand how this could be in the real world, but at least go, why are you speaking like that? I know that way you're speaking. That is familiar to me.
Yes.
And then in this one, it's like they take that away completely. And then also have him calling him Tom. It was just weird. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the thinking behind this is. Like, are they trying to make some sort of meta point or just missed the point? I don't know. It doesn't matter in the end because it's not entertaining.
Yeah, it's particularly odd given that the character could be excised completely from the film without it really making any difference. It's like he shows up for a Deus Ex Machina save at the end and then leaves. It's like, okay,
so I have no idea why that character's there. It's like at one point he says, "I have to kill you, Neo, for me and these exiles to live like the Merovingian." Like, And then apparently that's not the case later for some reason. I don't know why it was the case then. I don't know why it wasn't the case later. I don't know why that character's there other than, I guess, fan service. But if it's going to be somebody not at all like the one the fans would like.
Yes.
Which is kind of what makes me think it feels a point because it matches the other stuff in there. But at the same time, it's not good. It's not entertaining.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that don't work in here.
Yes.
The stuff that really doesn't work, if you cut that out, and the stuff that is a bit flaky, if you tightened up a bit, there's a good film in here. There's a good concept for a film in here, but yeah, just the execution, just nowhere near good enough. I don't hate it. I don't regret watching it, but very hard to really recommend with any kind of full throatedness behind it.
No, I don't regret it. Like I say, I think it's certainly better than Revolutions. I did not enjoy that when I watched it the weekend at all, or last week. It's kind of maybe on a par with the Reloaded, because I enjoyed that more this time, but it's not good. And once again, I just think they should have left it at The Matrix.
Yep.
It didn't.
Yes.
Not everything needs a sequel. That shouldn't have had one because the sequels haven't been good.
Yeah.